into every good part of my life. I can't take credit for it. I can't take credit for it.
Hey, church is like a good woman. We can't even find a good woman. You can't find a good woman.
Tail out of here. What kind of girl would let a boy fall all over her in the house of God?
If you do what God says do, He'll supply your every need.
Welcome back, my little Lepidolites, to Crystals and Crossroads, episode 4. I'm losing count as if we've published 250 episodes.
Yeah. You know what? I like the manifestation.
Today, we are talking about
Our ancestry.
And yes, and our ancestry, our lineage, how you can figure that out, how we figured it out, and kind of what we chose and how it helped our paths where we are currently. So I know Carly has some stuff more of the lineage because Carly did a lot of our ancestry trees and digging and all of that. And I just kind of looked at the trees as she did and pretended to help and said, "Oh,
cool.
Look at this person." And then she's like, "Yeah, I've already found that person." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Okay."
Yeah,
So
I'm
I'll
like
let her
5
take over that
generations deep
part.
over here. Yeah, but first we got to do our question of the episode.
Yeah. So our question of the day was, what was the first god or goddess that you like looked up, started researching? Who was like that first person?
Yeah.
First deity, whatever.
Okay. I think I did. It was either Hecate or Brigid because I can't remember which one exactly was first, but I just remember. I mean, at least I didn't really start researching goddesses or deities or whatever until maybe like within the last, I don't know, like year and a half.
Yeah.
But I just had started getting a ton of videos about Hecate on my For You page on TikTok. And it was like, these are signs that Hecate wants to work with you and like all this stuff. And I was like, I don't even know who that is. But I had read, what is that one book series? Where is it? I have it on my bookshelf somewhere.
Yeah, Touch of Darkness.
Yeah. And
St.
Hecate is in.
Yeah.
Yes, and Hecate is in it, and I
Uh-huh.
remember being like, "Oh, I really like Hecate."
Yeah.
And so I knew that she was like the goddess of like dogs and like all of these things. So like I really liked that. But then also I felt like a connection with Bridget, but Bridget is my mediumship spirit guide, so that checks out. I don't know if Hecate is a guide for me, but I would love it if she was. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I think that she's really cool. So, yeah.
Well, she's like the goddess of witchcraft. So I think on our path, like no matter what, if she's not yet, she will eventually be. And from what I've heard, Hecate is a harder, like she's just a no bullshit type of goddess.
Yeah.
So like she won't come to you until you're ready for her. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I think that's just the biggest thing is to remind ourselves is like, yeah, maybe she's come and been like, okay, maybe it's a little scary for you yet.
Yeah.
You know?
Right?
So,
I know. Makes sense.
for me, mine was like a little scary. I started researching the Morrigan. And this was even before I read Akatar, so don't get at me. I love Akatar, okay? And more is in there. But I started doing a lot of, like, we'll get into a lot of Celtic research and things like that. And I loved learning about the Morrigan. I loved the triple goddess, things like that. And I learned, I have the Dark Goddess, which is all about like Celtic lore regarding the Morrigan. And then I also have Women and Celtic Myth, where I read about All three of them. So, oh man, I said it too fast. Morgan, Mabe, and oh poop. I'll figure it out later while we're talking because we're going to talk a little bit about it anyways. But all three of their stories, the maiden mother crone kind of aspect, because I
Yeah.
prescribe to that a lot. I think me and my mom and Carly are, a definition of the maiden mother crone, and I would love and can't wait until I can be, the crone one day and be the old lady that has all of the wisdom. But I love the Morgan. She's absolutely terrifying though. So if she were to come and work with me, I would be so scared. I'm not ready for that. But
Yeah.
I do think she is just such a badass, and I would love for her to feel as if I'm a good person for her to come and help, and
Yeah.
feel that I'm ready for that. But I don't know if I am yet, so we're gonna go a little slow. But yes, I love
Yeah.
them. So,
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, you can say that your mediumship spirit guide is.
oh yeah. So my mediumship spirit guide is Nyx, who's the goddess of darkness. She's a primordial goddess, which I struggled with a little bit because I was like, what the hell does she want with me? Why would she choose
Yeah.
me? But after talking to, well, we'll just call Shelly. We're just gonna call Shelly Shelly. Shelly's our teacher,
Yeah.
whatever. After talking with Shelly, she was like, you don't know how many lives you've lived. Like it might feel out of touch for you to work with Nyx, but you might have lived so many lives that you were around when Nyx was first being introduced, when she first came around as well. So it's not out of the realm of
Yeah.
possibility that she would choose you to help. Um,
Yeah.
and I think I'm still kind of developing that and figuring that out. Deity work is still very, very, very much new to us.
Yeah.
So we're kind of taking it day by day. And from my meditations, she is also taking it day by day with me. But yeah, we're just kind of still exploring that. But I think it's been fun to
Yeah. I think
learn
so.
about other gods and goddesses and a future episode. But for now, we're going to talk about how we got to the Celtic path. So,
So, I always wanted to do our genealogy and ancestry. I mean, I've been doing it for years now. I think it's really interesting. And then I like begged everyone to do 23andMe and Ancestry.com DNA tests
yeah,
because I just think that it's just helpful to figure out like what we have been told and what is actually truthful. I mean, for the longest time, we were told this is so embarrassing. I feel like every white person has this story, but like you had a Cherokee princess ancestor, and you're just like, okay.
yeah. It was
So
like a 90% chance it was Pocahontas. Um, but there was a 0% chance of the reality of it being Pocahontas.
yeah,
But that I
that
feel like
was
that's what everybody, like says. Like, oh, you're definitely related to Pocahontas.
100%. And I'm like,
I'm
if you're
definitely
related to
related to John Smith,
Pocahontas,
unfortunately.
that's what I'm saying. If you're related to Pocahontas and you're white and it's from John Smith, you should not claim that. That is not great. But I do want to say that like we know it's much easier to as white people to find our ancestry, and we know that we are privileged in that. Like we can go generations back to find out
Yeah.
where exactly in Germany our ancestor came from. So like we recognize that, and we know that, minorities might not have the same experience, especially in America where we have the transatlantic slave trade. So I do just want to acknowledge that as like we know our privilege. But I am going to give some resources to help maybe people of color who are listening to this and are interested in starting their genealogy and figuring out where they came from exactly. Because I do this kind of for my job. So, I
Just
do know,
from that, yeah, that's her knowledge base. She knows what she's doing a
yeah,
little bit with that.
yeah. I, um, So to start with us, we are from Ireland, Germany, Scotland, and then we have percentages that are like randomly sprinkled throughout there. We
Yeah.
are white. We are
Uh-huh.
99.9% white.
Oh, for me, I think I'm out of all of us the most Irish. I'm almost 70%. And you have a little more German, right, than I do.
Comparing our DNAs with each other, I am 57% British and Irish, but it does say that it is the Irish part of that, not the British. You are 65%. I'm more German. Yeah, I'm 31%. You're 19%.
Yeah.
And then there's like Scandinavian, Italian for you, none for me.
I don't remember
You
that.
have, yeah, it must be new. Now the small percentages, like the point whatever,
Yeah.
you have, this is really random. You have 0.5% Arab, Egyptian, and Levantine.
Yeah.
Well,
Which is
actually, it's
wild.
Levantine. Yeah, it's not the
Yeah,
other two. It's just
Levantine. Yeah.
Levantine. And then I have 0.9% Indigenous American, and our mom has the 1%.
Yes, the one solid percent.
One ancestor, which I don't want to know how we got that.
Yeah.
I think that, again, most white people are told that they have Cherokee ancestry, okay? And most of the time it's not true. So when you do have that like point something percentage that's like a little different, you're like, huh, I wonder who that is. It's impossible
Yeah.
to find out. Okay? I tried. It's impossible. Like, this is so far back that it's not on any records. You know, like, it's just gonna be impossible to find them. But that is ours. So, like, it says that you are 99.1% European.
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
98.8%.
Yeah, like I'm 1000%. Like when I tell people, like, no, like I'm probably as white can get. I am.
Yeah.
Like,
Actually, though,
I
we're
don't even
not as
tan. I'm so damn white.
yeah. We're actually not as white as our cousin, though. Our cousin is 100% European.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Like, imagine paying for 23andMe and finding out you're 100%
Like you
European.
have
That makes me laugh.
nothing in your book.
Yeah.
And she's actually a lot more German, correct? Brittany.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Biddy. I ratted you
Yeah.
out.
It's just so funny to me. But so 23andMe doesn't do the Scottish ancestry for some reason. I don't know. I think they lumped it into like broadly European or whatever. But for ancestry, they do have the Scottish ancestry on there. And I think we were like what? Like 7% or something, or like 5.
Yes, it just depends where you're looking.
But also what I think is helpful with Ancestry, like the Ancestry DNA kit, is that you can look at your journeys. So it's basically like your ancestral journeys, like where your people came from and where they ended up in the United States. Like for us, we have Eastern Kentucky and Western West Virginia settlers. We have Kentucky settlers, and then we have the Delaware Valley, Chesapeake, and Midwest settlers, which is pretty on par for like our what we know oral history wise, from like what we've been told by like our great grandparents and then our grandparents. So like the Delaware Valley would be our mom's
Yes.
mom. So our
Yes.
great grandmother on
Great.
our mom's side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they settled in the Delaware Valley. And then Kentucky, which is going to be like Appalachian, so like Floyd County, Pike County, all of those Appalachian counties. And then the West Virginia settlers, I think that that's our
Great
great.
mom's grandpa.
Yeah, so
And grandma. Listen, all of our family ended up in the same damn place. I will just be honest with you. They all pretty
yeah, true.
much ended up
True.
together.
Yep.
Okay. Um,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
yes,
It's fun.
I do know that. So we've figured out our papa on our mom's dad. Did his family did come
Uh-huh.
in from North Carolina. We
Yeah.
figured that out. So that was really the only one that was like coming in a little bit different,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which kind of
Well,
makes sense for his family too, because they didn't grow up in Appalachia like
yeah.
the rest of, our family. So that
Yeah.
kind of tracks for them.
Right. I do, if you're really starting to try to figure out your ancestry, because you do, I don't know, I feel like when you're leaving Christianity, you want to find something that you have ancestral ties to. So it makes it more impactful when you're doing some sort of like whatever spirituality, whatever you want to believe in, if you want to believe in anything.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easier to find your ancestral ties. I
It
don't
gives
know.
you a starting point. It gives
Yeah,
you
yeah,
a starting point. And for me personally, when we started doing it, and it gave me, like I said, a place to start, I realized that what I was looking at felt right. Like I
yeah.
started very much with looking into Appalachian folk magic. And then I kind of
Mhm.
went from there, and the Celtic beliefs, the Celtic line of thinking makes sense to me and it feels
Yeah.
right. Our family does come from Appalachia,
Yeah.
and Appalachian folk magic is rooted in Native American practices. But I think that's like the basis of Appalachian folk magic is using the things and the knowledge they gained from Native Americans of, what berries you can eat, what herbs are good,
Yeah.
what plants in the mountains you can use to heal certain things, and then putting that into action. Um, I
Yeah,
think,
well, I also think that it's really cool. I mean, I don't know how many people actually know this. If you don't, here's a fun fact that I randomly have in my brain. That the Appalachian Mountains are connected to the mountain range that is go like through Scotland. So like that mountain range was at one point
the
one,
Highlands,
and
right?
then it's
Mm-hmm.
split. Yes.
Yeah.
And so it when the Scott Irish came here to America, they saw the Appalachians and they felt like they were at home. So I do find it to be very interesting that they chose to live there and then they picked up on what the indigenous people there were doing and
Yeah.
they hopefully learned from that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
But it was also another practice and religion that had to be morphed into Christianity, that had to be twisted
Colonized.
to say, oh, well, it's so Christian, right? Because I'm writing a spell, but it's with a psalm, a verse from
Yeah.
Psalm. I'm doing this. I am figuring out how to help heal these people with these herbs that God has given me, and I'm a vessel for healing. God has given me
Yeah.
this gift, da 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 da. So I do wonder a little bit at that point when it had to be twisted how it affected the Native Americans, because I'm sure that did have an effect on them and the
Yeah.
relationship that they could have had. But once again, that's just Christianity coming in and steamrolling everything.
Uh-huh.
And these people, these poor people who found a way to live that works for them, had to morph their entire life just to survive
Yeah.
once again, because
Yeah.
if they weren't Christian, they were witches, and at that time they were
Mhm.
dead. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's why I will say until I'm blue in the face, like my grandma was a kitchen witch. And
Mhm.
I 100% believe she was practicing folk magic in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and I love that. However, she would have never, ever said that.
No.
She would have never
No.
agreed with me. You're still practicing that. You're still doing rituals and things.
Yeah.
So Christianity did take a little bit from it, but they didn't take everything from it. So, but yeah, that was just a little rant because it's annoying to me that Christianity just takes everything and
I
has to
know.
twist it into like their own thing. And
Right.
once again, like you either do it or you die. And that's just the reality of Christianity. You
Well,
believe in
yeah,
me
it's
or you
kind
go to
of
hell
like,
or, you know.
yeah, it's
So,
kind of like fall in line and we'll help you with what you need to. But you have to fall in line first.
yeah. And
And
when you're coming to people who are already suffering,
right.
why are they not going to fall in line?
Anyway, um
Anyways,
so I wanted to give some resources for Black Americans who might be wanting to look into their ancestry because and know that they may have ancestors that were enslaved. So some southern states have digitized their enslaved people's records. So I know for North Carolina, they are working on digitizing every county, and the majority of the counties are pretty much done being digitized and uploaded into a system. But if you aren't really sure exactly where your ancestors might have been enslaved, or my first thing is try to go back to your oldest family member that is still living and get as much information from them as you can. Oral history is very important. And if you want to preserve this for like future generations, record it, write it down, interview them, look up how to do an oral history interview. There are guidelines online, but there is a website called enslaved.org where you can filter through maybe your ancestors weren't in the transatlantic slave trade, but maybe they were in like the Caribbean slash West Indies slave trade. You can go on there and you can search by like name, plantation, ship name, maybe. If you have any idea of where your ancestors might have ended up, you can look through that. I do want to say that a lot of enslaved people after emancipation, either they took on their enslaver's last name because it was just easier, or they completely scratched all of that and they made up their own name. And so I do know that it can be really difficult to find them. But I also, that's one resource. And then I also have Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Societies, Genealogy 101, where it's like if you're just getting started with African American family research, you should, here's some steps that you can follow. It does talk about, oral history, look for your oldest living family member, try to figure out what they know. And then it has tons of links to like blogs, books, other podcasts, like Family Search. I've used that a lot. So yeah, Family Search, and then like the Library of Congress, the Freedmen's Bureau, and then there's just like census records you can find. Usually if you have maybe a possible name of who the enslaver was, you can figure out if they even had enslaved people. That will show up on a census record prior to emancipation, so 1865-ish. And then if you are indigenous, oh, that's a whole nother thing. There's not a lot of DNA that has been collected by indigenous Americans, so it's not helpful to do DNA tests. If anything, you'd maybe find other relatives who have done DNA tests. So the best thing that you can do is if you were adopted find out where you were adopted from, contact the tribes in that area, in that state. They should be able to help you narrow down what tribal community you came from. If you weren't adopted and you know family names, you could look on the dolls rolls. It's only like a certain number of years that they did this. Um, and it's very difficult to find your indigenous ancestors because sometimes they were given white people names or sent to boarding schools, all these things. So I just think that I will link some things in the description to hopefully help
and
some
you know
people.
what? She loves to do it. So
I do.
if
So
you
if you
need
want
some
me to
help,
help
she
you,
might be able to like point you at least in the right direction or get you a
yeah,
start, somewhere that
yeah,
she has found things before. So reach out,
yeah. I think it's
message us on
really
Instagram, whatever. We'll figure it out.
if you have names and you want to look up maybe like newspaper articles or like something, newspapers.com, yes, it has a paywall. Okay. But if you sign up for a 7-day free trial with 3 different email accounts, you can get you can get 3 weeks for free. So
Yeah, didn't we find a news article about one of our like ancestors
yes. So
shooting their dad, right?
yes, but also our great grandpa's parents died in a car crash, and
Yeah.
we weren't sure exactly like the date that it happened and like if our great great grandma died on impact or if she died in the hospital and what happened. And I found the newspaper article for that. Um, and yes, one of those wild ass, I'm pretty sure it was a Tackett
Yeah.
shooting people. Like
Yeah, like
he
they were
shot
fighting over
him.
land and the
Yes.
daughter or the daughter-in-law, right?
Yes.
Shot her
Yes.
father-in-law, then the wife shot her son or some shit. Like, listen, nobody lived on the
Fucking
land. They were all
hillbilly
dead.
shit.
Like,
It was like
yeah,
triple
so
homicide.
it's super interesting to find where you're from. I think that's just so
Yeah.
important. If you have questions, it's helpful to know where you're from. Go back as
Right.
far as you can, and wherever you land and as far back as you can go, you know, that's where you're at, and that's what you've got to work with. That doesn't take anything away from you.
I know these DNA tests are like they're expensive. They are. But if like you really want to know, that's a really quick and easy way to figure out what your ancestors, like what you actually are.
So, in our search, not only did we look into Appalachian folk magic, but when we went a little deeper, we started looking into Celtic stuff. I think for us, it really started when we read Rise, Sister Rise by Rebecca Campbell.
Yeah.
And she described basically just these sites in Ireland, Europe, where they're just fucking magical, okay? You go
Right.
and you connect with the mother, and it's just beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So that to me, I was like, no, hell yeah. Like, I want to do that. I want to do that so
Yeah.
bad.
I
So,
know.
kind of navigating that into Celtic beliefs just makes sense to me. Um, I've read a lot of books on this. So, they had a lot of trouble archaeologically getting Celtic artifacts because
Mhm.
they were so entrenched in Christianity all of a sudden,
Yeah.
So the Celts really were ran out of Ireland.
Mhm.
And it was so drastic that they're just now, I think I told you about it, right? That they're like
Yeah.
just recently starting to find artifacts that they're relating to the Celtics,
Yeah.
So it's still kind of like new, realizing where exactly they were. However, from what I've understood is that the Celtics were more of a roaming, at that point, more of a roaming,
They were nomadic.
yeah, so they didn't stay in one place for very long.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that pretty much being in general terms, if you are from Ireland, Scotland, Europe, chances are good you could also relate to the Celtic way and their
Yeah.
beliefs, because
Yeah.
chances are good that your family might have been involved with that as well.
Well, the
So,
Celts were also Germanic tribes also.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. So
It
they,
basically
I mean,
encompasses our entire ancestry.
yeah,
So,
and each area believed things just a little bit differently too.
yeah.
So it's important to know that just like Christianity and the denominations and all of that, everything is going to be a little bit different, right?
Right.
You just got to do what you think is right. So just take that into account too, what feels good and what feels right to you. So I got this book, and I'll post my books because listen, I'm a book junkie. Every time I go to Barnes and Nobles, like I want to get a new like spiritual book, something like that. But
Yeah.
I got this book, Magic of the Celtic Otherworld, by Stephen Blamires, I think. But I got it and I liked it. As you can see, I'm a tapper. So I liked it because it had a really cool definition of the other world. And I brought that to Carly because I thought, like, she's searching for something. And I liked the way they described it. So, I'll share it with you guys. And obviously, like, you just take what resonates with you. Um, First of all, the other world, they kind of look at it as different, almost like islands or lands. So it's not just one specific place. They each have different characteristics and inhabitants. So one of like, they have, if you look it up, you can see kind of maps of the other world. So you can see the different islands and how they describe it. Um, So they have a tendency, the Western world has a tendency to shy away from death and treat it with a great deal of fear. I'm
Uh,
not pointing any fingers, but
you think?
um, obviously those attitudes are unhealthy and unhelpful when it comes to facing your own death or the death of the loved one. But an understanding of the structure of the other world will allow the journey to feel safer when you get to know it and understand it. So the way they describe it is so it reflects the natural ways of the green world, where plants are born, grow, die, and eventually reappear as new and complete plants. Some plants repeat the process several seasons and then for no apparent reason don't come back up. Some die and keep coming back. Some die and then come back several times or never again. So basically what they're saying is it is not where you're dead and you're in a permanent state of bliss, heaven, or you're in a permanent state of torture and pain, hell.
Yeah.
Like that to them like does not make sense. And obviously to us it doesn't make sense to us either. In the other world, you also have free will. You have the choice to do what you want with your life. And they sort of picture it in three different ways. So when you die, go to the other world, you can choose to stay there. You can choose to live your life in the other world. They look at the other world as the veil is a little bit thinner. So you are still able to see the world that we're in right now, and work with your it wouldn't be ancestors, would it? Like work with your descendants. Work with your descendants as like a crossover spirit guide. And do things like that. Or you can choose to reincarnate, you can come back. So they do prescribe to the belief that typically if you reincarnate, a lot of times it's in the same familial line or with the same people. So just something to keep in mind. Like chances are good if you believe in this, you've lived past lives with the same people that you're living life with now. Or they believe that you can simply just be done with it, right? Like you just cease to exist. Your consciousness just kind of goes away. And that's okay, right? That's the choice you can make. It's up to you, which I think is great.
That's the important part. It's a choice.
Exactly. Like it
It's
is
not an
not,
ultimatum.
yeah, like I like the idea of being able to decide. I would like to go on to the other side, and help my
Yeah.
descendants live a spiritually healthy life and help guide them and, help them grow. However, there might come a time where I want to go back and I want to try again, or I want to experience life again. And I don't know, maybe there will be a day where I'm like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. I've already done it long enough. I don't know any of these people. So, like, I think
Yeah.
we'll just be done. That's the beautiful part of it is you have a choice. You don't
Yeah.
have to decide right now. You don't
Yeah.
have to even have an inkling of a hope of what you're going to do on the other side because you have time to think about that.
Yeah.
One thing I did find interesting is the Celtics do not typically believe in um, learning about past lives and knowing about what you've done in past lives. I'm like on the fence with that. I find it interesting. I personally didn't go into a reading to find a past life. However, it ended up being like that where Shelly, let me know that Carly and I lived a past life more than once together. In just different roles. And our last past life, she was my mom, which is super interesting. But it's cool because it kind of helps explain our relationship now a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more. But I also am not naturally super interested in past lives. I could live without knowing. It's not something like I feel like I need to know.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna hear about it, cool. That sounds, like badass. Hopefully I was pretty cool. I died when I was 7. So it wasn't a good life for me.
Or me.
Yeah, so
Jesus.
like I'm not like overly interested. I do think
Yeah.
it's cool to know that I have lived past lives with, Carly, probably my kids, my
Yeah.
parents, Rob. Like, I feel like there's a purpose these people are in my life. Like, there's a reason, but I don't need to know all of those details.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
Another cool thing about this book is it just goes over all the different gods and goddesses in the Celtic pantheon. It's important to note that a lot of the pantheons have the same types of god and goddesses. They're just different. And I just feel like that's important to point out, right? Like,
Huh.
so for that reason alone, I don't know that because I feel like I'm drawn more to Celtic that I work with Nyx, who's from the Greek pantheon. So I don't feel like you have to stick with them because I do feel like there's a little bit of crossover.
Yeah.
But this book is super cool in the fact that it tells you about the god and goddesses. If there's someone you should work with, why you would work with them, and how you might go about working with them, right? So, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not even going to try to pronounce their names because it makes no sense to me because I might have Irish blood, but I do not speak any Irish, and they have their own language over there. Okay, so this one, well, how I would pronounce it is Dion Chet. It's actually Gian Kecht. I don't know. I'll show you. It says contact with this deity is encouraged for those interested in healing work. 18, contact is cultivated by those interested in the Say and the fairies, but be careful as contact with these beings can be quite unnerving. I think that's important because it's important to know what you're messing with. So reading this
Yeah.
book and
Yes.
knowing like, especially for them, the Morgan is in here and it actually is like, no, don't do that. Why would you do that? Because she's crazy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she will scare the shit out of you. But it
Yeah.
also has like, making contact, how to contact them, different festivals and rituals that the Celts believe in. Um, just to kind of incorporate it into your life. So I think this book is super helpful. I got it on Amazon, so if you're looking for one, this one's great. This one, The Dark Goddess, is more just about the Morrigan. So if she sounds interesting to you, check it out. But
If
this
this
one,
is like the 7th video you've heard about the Morgan,
yeah, there's
chances might
probably a
be good that,
reason.
yeah.
Yeah. So, something to highlight in this book, the legal rights ancient Celtic women enjoyed far exceeded the rights of their contemporaries in other cultures. I'm just saying, Celtic women traditionally acted as judges and mediators in both military and political disputes. A Celtic woman could legally own land and inherit property. So, the Celts were a little feminist, and I'm
Yeah.
all for that. Okay?
Were they a
But you know what?
matriarchal
Yes, they
society?
were. And having a goddess of war like the Morgan, I feel like is gonna make anybody a feminist because bitch, she will cut you. Don't fuck
Right.
with her. Don't fuck with her. Like she will be the most beautiful woman in the world and then turn into an old hag and gut your ass the second you
Yeah.
even make it known that you think she's cute. Okay? Like,
Yeah.
there are legitimate stories about how she lured men in just to kill them. Okay. So,
Why
like,
wouldn't you?
I think that's another great thing, like, about the Celts is they just feel like I believe in a matriarchal society. I think if you've read Rise, Sister, Rise by Rebecca Campbell, it talks about how everywhere, almost everywhere, was a matriarchal society
Yeah.
before Christianity became a thing. So why all of a sudden, now there's a God and
Mm.
women are less than,
Yeah.
unless it was written by men.
Yeah.
Fucking
Which
men.
we know it was, so
Fucking men. So, this also says the idea that the ancient Druids were men is in large part the result of Christian censorship of classical Irish and Welsh references to the female half of the Druidic caste. There were
yeah.
dozens of such references remaining, and they are negative and vastly outnumbered by the ones referring to male Druids. This is in keeping with both Greek and Roman sexism. It also supports the historical Christian preference that women be excluded from positions of spiritual power. Bitches. And I think just reading, to me, also reading the lore, right?
Yeah.
Reading about the different gods and goddesses and the lore of how they came to be, and the stories that are out there because they're so important as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and also, I've delved a little into it. It's a little bit difficult for me, but the Celts do have divination. They have the Ogham, Ogham, which is based off of the trees. It's typically they're made like sticks or
Mm.
little cutoffs from the trees. But there's lots of
So
information about there on that. Eventually, like I would like to dig more into it. I have a book about it. I haven't done a ton with it yet just because it's kind of a lot and still not a ton out there about it,
yeah.
so I think eventually I'll look more into it, but for now, um yeah, like for now we're just exploring, and so far
Yeah.
that form of afterlife, the other world, fits well with me and I like it. um
Yeah.
and that's what I'll continue to prescribe to until, unless something else comes up that I'm like, oh, that might fit a little better. But don't, I don't know that that will happen. Eventually, we'll dig a little bit deeper into the Celtic history, the lore, the gods and goddesses. That can be a whole entire hour-long episode on its own. In our next episode, we're going to talk a little bit deeper into where we are actually at with our beliefs.
Yeah.
But for now, we're going to pick our card of
Yeah.
the
Go
week.
for it.
Let's see. What does everyone need? Oh, there it is. So we got Page of Wands. Adventure, excitement, fresh ideas, cheerfulness, extrovert, limitless potential. So this is a great
Hey.
thing.
Yeah.
If you are wanting to do something new, go on an adventure, travel, basically, I feel like it's just saying, like, live your life this week, enjoy it. It is almost summer. We're almost there. Some good things are coming, and this is super positive. So, whatever questions you think, or if you have anything coming up, get out there, go out and enjoy yourself, right? Don't stay in your house. Get outside, go to the festival, go to the amusement park, do whatever you can just to get out and enjoy your life.
We'll see you at the crossroads, witches.
Bye.